Hold on, let's let the patrol go by. Period. Baywatch. Okay. Hey y'all, so thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching Watch This, Read That, where I discuss film, television series, and screenwriting tips for beginning writers, and also books. Okay, so this is the first time that I'm going to do a book review on this channel. I'm really excited because as you can see from the thumbnail, it's going to be by one of my favorite writers who has transitioned to just doing film and TV. I don't know if she wrote Sparkle, but I know Mara Kill directed Sparkle, and I hope y'all can also hear me because as you can see from the location, I am at the beach, girl. It's hot as hell, and I would have had to turn on that air in the house, and y'all wouldn't have been able to hear me no way. So I was like, I might as well just go to the beach. And it's hot as hell at the beach. When I tell you the sand is so hot, girl, like it's hot. So I was like, let me just come here, not to kill two birds with one stone. I know that's like a bad analogy or whatever, but or quote or whatever it is, but y'all know what I mean. But I hope y'all can hear me. I hope y'all can see me really well because it is bright as hell as well. I could barely see my phone. I am using my phone to record. And let me make sure it's still recording. Yeah, it's still recording. So I hope my phone doesn't overheat. So I'm gonna hurry up and go and talk about this. So this is Mara Brock Akil's new book called The Revelation of Dionne Daphne. And y'all, I think everyone should read this book, but specifically if you are a woman, you should read this book. If you are a black woman, you should definitely read this book. Hold on, let's let the patrol go by. Period. Baywatch. Okay. First and foremost, let me just go over the premise. I'm gonna try to do this quick because I told y'all it's hot as hell and I don't want my camera to overheat. And I know it's gonna cut off at least one time. So the premise of the book is about this young woman who she has a one night stand with a guy. And let me just say this, it's gonna be spoilers. So just if you have not read the book, please do not continue to watch this. Read the book and then come back unless you want it to be spoiled. However, I will say the premise was a little spoiled for me, and I still read the book afterwards, and I was still heavily entertained. However, I wish some of the premise wasn't spilled for me, so that's why I'm telling y'all to not listen to this if y'all have not read the book. Also, like, shout out to me because it is a lot of people here and I'm really out here filming, so shout out to me. I said I wanted to be more consistent, so I'm being more consistent. You heard me? I'm in New Orleans right now. You heard me? So basically, Dionne Daphne, she is a beauty editor at SM Magazine. She, from the outside looking in, it looks like she had her life all put together. One night she goes to a party after going through a 6-month breakup with her boyfriend, and she's like, I'm about to get turned. She meets this basketball player because her homegirl is a PR. She works in PR, and they rep sometimes sports teams and stuff like that. So she goes out and meet this guy at the club. They have a one night stand, and then she gets a knock on the door from her boyfriend. Her boyfriend is irate, her ex-boyfriend. From 6 months of a breakup, she hasn't heard from him. Now she hears from him. He knocks on her door. The guy jolts out, the one night stand guy. Well, let's give names. Kareem jolts out, the basketball player, because he's like, listen, I got stuff on the line. He just jolts out, and he's like, he leaves, and while the door is open, the ex-boyfriend, Darren, reveals that he tested HIV positive and she needs to get tested. While he says this, there is a guy. I also forgot to mention this is set in the 90s. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but like, it's a lot that goes on. It's set in the 90s, so this is a time where people would get newspapers delivered right to their door, even an apartment building, straight to their door. And the newspaper guy is there delivering newspapers, and he hears the whole conversation because their door is open. He hears this, and we now get Dionne going through one of the toughest times in her life. While she's also up for a promotion, she is dealing with waiting on her testing to see if she is HIV positive, while also, like I said, dealing with her promotion, figuring out how this relationship that I think she was with for 3 years, how did they get to this situation? How did Darren get HIV? And then while this happens, she develops a friendship with the guy that delivered the newspaper. While we see all of this, we also find out that Dionne, while she has to write down all the names of her partners, she comes back to the realization that she has to talk about the first person that she has ever had sex with, which was her stepfather. Girl, when I tell you this book, I don't know, hold on, let me take my thing out. I don't know if y'all can see this, but do you see the tablets? Y'all can see that I got notes. Let's just say this. Let's just start off with what I love, because I loved a lot about it, but let's start off with what I love, and then we're going to go into themes, because there's a lot of themes in here that I kind of want to talk about. First and foremost, the chapters were written to me like diary entries. Some of them were very long, some of them were very short. Like, I'm talking about, some of them was a sentence, the chapter, and I love that it was written like a diary entry. Then also, what I loved about it was the countdown, because it gave intensity of like what we're trying to find out. So basically, we're going through this 2 weeks just like she is. So the diary is written like diary entries of her going through everything she's going through up until this point, and then also memories from her past and how she's coping with everything. So I love that. Yeah, I love the way it was written. I love the relationship dynamic with her and her best friend. I love that. And then there's other stuff that I love about it, but I want to talk more about the themes. Okay. The first and foremost theme, Mara Brock Akil talked about how shame is one of the core themes in this. You have Dionne, she comes to the realization that as she is writing down all her sexual partners, the list, I think it goes over 34, and she starts to have shame about that. But of course, the number one shame was the fact that she was molested as a child. And when I tell you, when I tell you the build up to that, it just really showed you how this predator really groomed the situation, which was really hard to see. She talks about secrets. Secrets was one of the main core also theme, because she never told anybody about this secret. Nobody in her family knows about it. I also forgot to mention that she has a younger sister, Wilford, I think that's her name, Wilford, and she is the oldest. And I thought it was so interesting that she never really talked about how she really thought like, oh, this is happening to me, I wonder if this is also happening to my sister. But there was an encounter that happened that I think that gave her some release of thinking that no, this doesn't happen, because her stepfather did stop when she was 15 years old, and the way he stopped and what he said, it was just disgusting. Anyway, so secret. So she never told anybody about this secret. The first person that she told about this secret, let's let the helicopter go over. The first person that she told about this secret was the guy who she kind of was introduced to when she found out about her partner being HIV positive, and that was the newspaper delivery guy, which his name is Dominic. We're going to call him Dom. Secrets. Something else that I thought was very interesting, her mother will always tell her, like, never let, I'm paraphrasing, like, you never let people see you sweat. You always be put together. She grew up in a very, I would say, well-off family. Like, she was in Jack and Jill. She was went to debutante balls, and like she worked at a country club. She didn't go to Northwestern. I'm sorry, Maura Barker Kill went to Northwestern, but she went to Columbia. So you could see, and they lived in Kansas City, and it was kind of revealed that her stepfather was kind of like a pivotal pillar figure in that area that they lived in, and they were doing very well off. I also didn't mention that Dionne's father, I think his original name was David. He actually converted to Islam after just going through a tough time of losing his job and just trying to figure out who he is and what he wanted to be. He transitioned. I keep saying transition. He converted to Islam, and that, along with the fact that they kind of was struggling with money, that kind of was the demise of her parents' marriage, and that kind of forced her mother to move back home with her parents. And that was a very hard time. So because of that, Barbara felt like, she not being broke no more. She wanted to do everything in her power to make sure her girls were good. And she married Richard, which is the stepfather, who was well off. He had a well off job, and they did really well. And she thought she was doing the best for her girls. Mind you, she never knew that this happened. So secrets was a big key factor. Even Dionne never told her best friend Farrah that she was molested. She never told anybody. It was always put onto her. And also, I would even go to say her grandparents was to kind of give this perception that you are doing well, which, let's transition this to one of the biggest themes that I think that is in this book, is the American dream, y'all. When I tell you, this book really talks about the American dream and how, I think a lot of people are understanding that the American dream is a facade, that you can work really, really hard. You can do all of the things, but sometimes it may not happen the way society says it should happen. That is why you have to do what works best for you in your circumstances, and not really allow society to control your life. That's what, I really believe. We see this that was one of the reasons why he kind of converted to Islam, because he felt like the way of the world that he was kind of conditioned to think about, you work hard, you do this, you get married, you build a family, and you retire. It did not go that way. He lost his job, and everything there was a domino effect after that. Dionne, she has this perfect job. She had what she thought was the perfect boyfriend. There was even a moment where mind you, I didn't say this. Well, I said she was working at Essence, which is in New York City, and her boyfriend, who I believe he was a banker. Don't get me to lying, y'all. He had a good job. I forget what he did. I'm sorry. I'm just I'm out here and so many people, and I'm just I'm trying to get it out. But really quickly, he was the perfect boyfriend. She even talked about how he waited for them to have sex. She was trying to have sex with him, and he was he made her wait weeks, almost I want to say 6 weeks or something like that. He made her wait a couple of weeks, and she thought that was like a great gesture. And then when she started to think about it, she started to reflect and see like, oh, I now understand why he wanted to wait. The American dream. So there was one moment in time where when they were together, they were going to see houses in Connecticut. Y'all know, like, instead of living in New York City, people tend to move to Connecticut because that's more like families. That's like the white picket fence, the husband, the wife. We're doing this so that we can have the kids, and then the dog, like, like that is part of the American dream. She has her dream job, he has a great job. They're like considered the perfect black couple. And as they were there, the real estate agent was like, you know you know are y'all getting married? And she's like, she does a joke, which as women we will do. She says, oh, I'm just waiting for him to ask me. And he shuts down. My thought right there was like, okay, y'all are looking at houses together. Why are you shutting down at this joke? He shuts down and says he doesn't want to be pressured into marrying her, which I can't understand. But nigga, y'all looking at houses. What do you mean? Y'all looking at houses to move together. I think y'all on key. Y'all right on tune for what is the next step to getting married. And I don't think a joke is pressuring you. But we come to find out that there was other things on his mind that had pressure on him. So also the American dream of having the perfect family. When she was growing up, her mother also believed that being married to Richard, her two girls, even like there was a scene where we go back to her hometown and see, and hold on, let me let this helicopter. We're going back to see her family, and you can see how even from the outside looking in, it does look like the perfect family, y'all. And we kind of get caught up that this looks like the perfect family. You ain't even know that there's so many secrets going on behind the scenes. So that was that. And then also, even like another part of the American dream, okay, so I know, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all around, but it doesn't matter. We're going to just get it out. I also didn't mention, so Dionne was up for a promotion, and this is also a part of the American dream. Her boss was leaving, right? So she was up for the job of her boss job, and instead of just being the runner up, they wanted to also kind of go outside, external, for other candidates. And she would have just been up for the running for the work that she did. But because she wanted to make sure she put in the effort to put in a good word for herself, she wanted to also participate in what the other external candidates were doing, which was like basically like a proof of concept that she can kind of deliver to as a pitch. And all of the other external candidates were doing this, and she wanted to also participate even though she didn't have to. That's also a part of the American dream, just wanting to go above and beyond to make sure you get to the bag, you know what I mean? So she decided, she pitched it like, I want to do a concept, I have this idea, can you give me the budget that they are also having? So the budget was $10,000. So now she has this other thing that she has on her back. Mind you, she just found out that her ex-partner is HIV positive, and now she, to kind of compartmentalize things, she wants to take on more at this time. Instead of just letting it go by, she wants to take in more. I also think that's a part of also being black, and then wanting to make sure you're constantly on edge, want to make sure you secure your spot. I'm not gonna lie, that's something I would have did too, but I also think that's a part of the American dream, the work, the hustle mentality. So she goes, I'm gonna tell a little bit of the story. when she decides to go to her ex-boyfriend's house, and this is when he dropped the bomb that he has been cheating on her, and the people that he was cheating on her with were men, because he basically is on the down low. And this is where the kicker was, because he literally said to her, don't act like you didn't know. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, holy shit. Now here's the thing. I was just like, but what if there are men that are maybe like, just like some traits that you just deem as feminine, or kind of like, just they are not like the typical hyper masculine or hypersexual men, because Darren was not hypersexual with her, and she appreciated that and liked that about him. And I think she deep down kind of felt like she knew, but I'm like, well, what if you, like, I just was conflicted with that, because I'm like, damn, like, so if she had any inclination of this or a feeling, was that supposed to be a red flag that somebody is taking their time? Like, it kind of like made me feel like you damned if you do or damned if you don't ignore a red flag. That was one thing. And I thought it was so interesting that he kind of like threw that in her face, like, you know, you like, don't be surprised, like, you knew this. Which is like flipping the script, which that's another theme that I felt like a lot of people did in this story. And because, okay, so fast forward, she goes home and she rushes into her apartment, door open, she starts to cry, and this is when Dominic comes in to check on her, and she felt so safe that she revealed everything to him. He is the first person that she ever told that she got molested by her stepfather. She tells him everything. She tells him that Darren is HIV positive, and he cheated on her with the nigga that was selling him the rings that she was going to propose with. He says he had sex with him 3 times. And I think like there was only 3 people during that time that he cheated on her with, but that guy was the last person. And that was one of the reasons why he kind of shut down when they went to Connecticut, because he was conflicted, which I understand. And we got to understand that this was set in the 90s, y'all. HIV was very new. I know in the 80s and 90s, but it was very much a new disease. They didn't really understand it. I grew up in the 90s. I still was a child, but I remember the press conference with Magic Johnson. I remember just like I remember those red pins when they first came out and people were wearing them. I think it was Magic Johnson and Paula Abdul. They came out. It was something like that. But I just remember it was at a award show or something like that. I don't remember. I don't know. But I just remember it was very new. I also remember my mom worked I'm from Philly. And there was, y'all, let me give this tidbit. HBO has the newer Eyes on the Prize documentary. They do a great episode about HIV and AIDS in the 90s, in the 80s, 90s. When I tell you it's so good, it talks about a black Muslim woman in Philly. I think her name is Sister Khadijah. Don't get me to lying. I'll insert her name here, or I'll say her name here if I messed up her name. I think it's Khadijah. But she was an advocate. She was a nurse in Philly, and she noticed how the doctors, they just wasn't doing the same treatment on the black and the Latin people that had HIV, which then transitioned to AIDS, which we're going to come back to that. But with that being said, so when she goes back, when Dionne goes back to her house, she tells him everything. She tells Dom everything, and she hires him as her photographer because she finds out that he was locked up and he started doing photography in prison. And she decides off the whim to hire him. Now this is where I was like, Dionne was getting on my nerves, but I understood. This is why it's such a good thing, because all of the, when I tell you, I know this could happen to anybody, but as a black person, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm like, am I tripping? Am I going crazy? Like, is this like, what's going on? Like, am I crazy? Like, is this trip? She would, in one blink of an eye, be like, okay, I'm gonna hire you, and then in the next thought, be like, did he overhear that I got the promotion and I needed a photographer? He's trying to con me. He got locked up. Like, she would go from one thing to the next of like, it was almost like she was like bipolar. She was like 1 minute up, 1 minute down. But it's just all the stuff that she went through. And because of this, and also he's trying to have a better life as well, he like, yeah, like, I would do it. And they had a really, and when I tell you, you could still see that Dionne was going through a lot. And Dominic, when I tell you, Dominic gave her so much grace, y'all, because the way she was calling him an ex-con, the way she was talking to him, it also showed me how was things at her house. These are things, once we started to learn more about Dionne, there were things that were also said in her house, and also things that people said later on that I was like, oh, this is where she gets it from. This is where she gets it from. As they are going through this journey, we see them go through like a seesaw of like emotions of like being friendly but then also beefing. And it was because Dionne could not trust anybody, even to the point where after she told Kareem, she did tell Kareem like, yo, you need to get tested, which, like, shout out to her for not being, because I could see somebody being like, yo, I could just let this go by the wayside and let me just keep this perfected, this theme of perfection. I don't want anybody to know this about me, because she did go to like Connecticut just to get the HIV test. And I was like, girl, I get it, but like, yeah, no, I get it, but like, all the way to Connecticut, like, you live in Brooklyn, you could have just went to the Bronx, like, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't have to go to Connecticut. But I guess I understand how she felt. And child, so it just was like a seesaw, and we just see how like Dionne dealing with this all internally. She was always in battle with herself. So I understand why it was so conflicting of her to trust people. Like I said, she went to go tell Kareem. That nigga spazzed out, which I get. But I was like, oh my God. And then he kind of made up for it and was like, yo, I'm sorry. Like, like, I'm gonna get tested or whatever. She never tells Farrah, her best friend. Farrah had to find out from Kareem, which that could be very hurtful, but I understand why, because it's just like I really felt like she felt like if she told people things that it would cause rejection. So let's talk about rejection in relationships. We want to combine the two. Whew, child. She's receiving rejection from her partner, which was with her ex-partner Darren, and she couldn't understand like why we didn't get married, why. And we find out because he was on the down low, and this was a different time. And I understand why he did it. I wish he didn't do it, but I understand. And a lot of times, y'all have to understand, sometimes when it's rejection about anything, a relationship, sometimes it's not about you, it's about the other person, and not to take it personal. So I understand, like, she didn't understand what was going on, but now we understand. It wasn't her, it was him. He he was facing with the pressure of society, which is also the American dream. What happens when somebody finds out that in the 90s you are a queer black man? I understand that's going against the grain of the American dream. So he doesn't want to be rejected from society, right? Rejection. Let's talk about how rejection with her mother. Dionne never told her mother, I strongly believe this, and she goes on to say this and later. She talks about how deep down she didn't really want to say anything because she knew it was going to mess up the home, but then also the idea of her mom not believing her, or her mom kind of like just not doing anything about it, was one of the things that she would rather not deal with versus actually dealing with. And I said, yo, that's a really thing. I remember when Young MA, and this is kind of like different, Young MA did a Breakfast Club interview, and she talked about how her mom would always be like, oh yeah, like if you queer, like she would say gay, if you gay, it don't matter to me. And she said deep down, she's like, I know she said that, but you still never know with your parents. And then until her mom was like, yo, if you are, I don't care, like you my child. And she was like, okay. But deep down inside, she really still wasn't coming out about it, because she was kind of like hesitant. She didn't want her mom to like deny her, but her mom never did. But it was like something, kind of like a fear that she would have, like, I don't want my mom to like look at me different. So boom, this is also what I think Dionne was going through. She didn't want her mom to look at her different. She didn't want her mom to deny her or reject her and claim Richard in any kind of way over her. That's what I believed. And girl, we was right. Because when I tell you, let's get to the rejection. So Dionne reveals to her mom, wow. So I didn't also say this. The reason, so they're going on this road trip. Dionne and Dominic are going on this road trip to capture everyday women in their original form of essence, beauty. And then as they go through different states, they take different pictures, but they're also going to tell her mother that what happened to her. So as we're going on this road trip, right? Dionne decides, and this is also where I was like, Dionne, like, girl, what's going on? Dionne decides that she wants to go see her father. She's like, this didn't start with my mother. This started with my father. My father was never there. He had a new family after he converted to Islam. He got a new family. He got married. He had kids, and he kind of like put us by the wayside. He missed her. He's loud as hell. He remarried because Dionne was graduating from Columbia at the same time his second wife was pregnant. He was nervous about leaving the city where they were in, which was Detroit, to come to New York, and he decided that he wanted to stay back home. So he basically missed her graduation, and that was the catalyst, like the straw that broke the camel's back, where she kind of was like turned off from her father and then wasn't really in the life of her siblings like that. And that was ultimate, I would say, one of her first rejections, but then also the fear of telling her mother about this awful thing that was also happening to her when she was younger, being rejected by another parent. So I can understand why she does not want to tell anybody about that. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just so complex. So she reveals to her father that, in that whole scene when she see her sisters and says she wants to do right by them, it was just so beautiful. But she reveals in front of Dom, the new wife Miriam, and the father Wahid, that she got molested, and she said she used to always pray for him to be there, but he never come. And he's like, can you pray with me? And she's like, no, you never showed up for me. When I tell you, this man was crying, he was sick. But at the same time, it was just so interesting how when she came in, and I understand this with Islamic culture, you know, when Dom came in, he greeted him with a handshake. He didn't even hug his daughter. And I was always wondered about that. Like, what was going on? I don't know. It was just so interesting. So she was like, dang, I wish he would have hugged me or greeted me with a handshake like he did Dom, which was so interesting. But she told him, and then she reveals this, and she leaves just like that. And he's like, yo, like, can you tell, like, you can't just drop this on me and then leave. And she's like, well, I can. I've been holding this for very long. It's not gonna hurt you to hold this for a little bit. I'm paraphrasing. So they leave, right? They have her and Dom have an argument. And she's like, we should take a picture of Miriam. I should go back and take a picture of Miriam. And then she was like, let me just tell this one part. She was like, my father, she was just like, I'm paraphrasing. She's like, look at him trying to, like, he up in there regurgitating orders like he a damn drill sergeant or something. Like, what the hell is wrong with him or whatever like that. And she's like, and I hate to mention this, but she is almost the same. They're like the same age. His wife is the same age as Dionne. They're in the same age group, which is like, that's kind of weird, y'all. I don't care what nobody says. Like, if my dad was dating somebody my age, I would be freaked out. Like, you scumbag, what are you doing? Like, and I get it. Like, I don't get it. This is actually weird. Like, your daughter is 20 something at the time when your daughter was in college. Your wife is also 20 something. That's weird to me. And you're like 50, 60 years old. You know, like, that's weird. Anyway, so they go back, and she comes back, and she asks Miriam if she could take pictures, and he's just like, I don't know why you're doing this. And it's just like, I think she went back to really see if, like, her dad would, like, just embrace her, and that's not what she got. It's like the ultimate rejection. So they left, and they were kind of her and Dom were kind of beefing for a little bit. Fast forward to when we get to the house, right? When she get there, her mother's having a book club meeting. Richard is there. He's grilling for them. It really seems like the perfect family, y'all. So when she's seeing this and she's in this element, she's like, I don't want to mess this up. Even though she did that to her dad, she felt like that situation was granted because he never was there. But this, she did not want to ruin for her mom. She didn't want her mom to feel any type of rejection or have her mom reject her. So she was conflicted about revealing this and then this is another thing where I was like, am I crazy, or what's going on? She is alone with Richard. They have a conversation, and I'm just like, this man is acting like he never did anything. Like, he seems like a great guy, right? He seems like a really great guy. Girl, when I tell you, that night when she go to sleep, we get the details of what he did to her. Disgusting. Okay, it broke my heart. I had to put the book down for a second because I was about to cry. Also, I forgot to mention, when she had that conversation, he told her that he was coaching the girls softball team. I said, bitch, you need to say something. You need to say something. I don't know what to tell you, girl, but this is one of the reasons why you need to say something. Fuck your mama. No shade. But, like, put your mama to the side. You need to say something. So she was contemplating with that, like, oh my God, like, I want to vomit at the thought of him coaching these girls. Fast forward, she's like, okay, I'm gonna get up out of here. The next morning, I'm gonna get up out of here. I can't tell anybody. Dom knocks on the door to pick her up. He's like, hey, hi, I'm here to pick up Dionne. Is she okay? I'm like, oh my God. So, because this is where it got intense. And I would say the writing was so great because we don't know if she's going to tell. Then I was like, is he going to reveal it? Like, how is this going to play out? Or is she going to come all this way and not actually share this information? I was just like, this is crazy. So, we as mamas would do, like, oh, y'all not gonna go to church with us, y'all not gonna do anything, like. So she's like, no, we gotta get up out of here. She's like, well, y'all, you have to eat breakfast, and mama's like, they gonna make you eat. So they're eating breakfast. It's like a tradition where they eat pancakes before I was about to say Sunday school, before church. Anyway, real quick, the sister come over. The sister is there. They're talking. Dom and Richard is having a side conversation. He seems like a dope guy. He's like, this is the kicker. He's like, it's hard. It's hard. And Dionne, as she's listening to her conversation with her sister and her mom, she's also ear hustling to what they're saying. He's saying, it's hard for brothers. You'll find your way. Like, don't let it get you down. You'll get acclimated. All this other shit or whatever. And like really rooting for him, right? Girl, the sister says, I can't wait for the girls trip we're going to have when we come to see you. I forgot to mention, the sister is pregnant, and she also has a daughter. I think the daughter is like 5 or 6 or something like that. She tells them, I'm going to leave the daughter with Richard when we go on the trip. I think she's ready. When I tell you, I was screaming. I was like, bitch, you gotta tell her. You gotta tell her. When that happened, she said, you're gonna leave him with Richard. When I tell you, Richard grabbed his fork and was holding that fork tight as hell and had a look on his face. She said, you can't leave him with Richard because Richard was molesting me from the age of 10 to 15. My jaw dropped. The sister was like, what? The mama was like, Rich. She just whispers, Richard. When I tell you, you want to talk about flipping the script. When I tell you Richard flipped the script, I instantly understood. Oh my God, sorry, this bug. I instantly understood where she kind of got it from. Where she would say little things like how Richard would say to her, like, this is what a father is supposed to do. Your father left and he put me in charge, so this is what fathers do. So she, mind you, she's 10, so she's not understanding what's going on. And then he would say shit like, y'all would starve if it wasn't for me, because remember, they were going through a rough patch. She was living home with her parents, moved the kids in with her parents when she kind of broke up with Wahid or whatever. When I tell you he flipped the script, because I'm like, the man that I'm seeing right now in this house is not giving me this. When I tell you he showed his ass, he flipped the script. He flipped the script on it like no other. I kind of want a soda. Okay, but he flipped the script like no other. And he was like, your daughter is a whore. Your daughter is a whore. She's just mad because she's ran through. Let's not forget how many boys we saw in here. She gonna say I did stuff to her. I said, this is crazy, y'all. I could not believe it. But then I was like, oh. Then she was like, you gonna come up in here with this ex-con. Remember, he was just bigging him up 5 minutes ago. Then he called him an ex-con. I was like, okay, this is where she's getting it from. I also didn't mention that there was a lot of themes also with classism that I noticed with Dionne, and she also checked herself later on, which I appreciate, but I can see why. It's all a part of the American dream. It's things you're conditioned to kind of internalize. Her grandmother put pressure on her mother, told her she wasted her beauty on the girl's father. It's just like little things that you kind of understand that you have been conditioned to do, and I understand why Dionne was reacting the way she did. So, and ultimately, when he said get out, she got out. The mom just said that. She's like, Mom, and she just will say Richard. She left, right? And Dionne's sister came out, hugged her, and said, I believe you. Um, she's like, what? She's still in there? And she's like, listen, she'll come around, come to my house. They leave, and she gets what she did not want. This was the ultimate thing she did not want. Her mother never came out to see her in that moment. So they continue on a road trip, and she's just really hurt. As we continue on a road trip, there's some other details. I don't want to go into those details with Dominic, because I'll save that for y'all to like hone on your own. But Dom really took a gamble. He lost his job by going to this. By doing this with her, his manager told him, like, if you don't come in the next day, you don't have a job. So basically, he was betting on himself, which is also a part of the American dream, of like, betting on quit your job to do your dream job. And I appreciate Dom for doing that, but also in the route of him doing that, he had linked up with somebody and something happened from there. I'm not going to talk about what happened. We'll leave that for y'all to kind of figure out for yourselves. But they part ways. Dionne and Dominic part ways, and she goes to a motel. She calls Farrah, and Farrah comes right to her as a sister, as a soul sister, your best friend would do. And she just embraced her. Like Mara Brock Akil talked about how she your girlfriends are your lifeline. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought this story was gonna be more of a girlfriends type of fun, lighthearted. This book was heavy as hell, but it was really good and it was very complex. Yeah, just the themes of cycles, Dominic not wanting to go through the cycle of going back to jail. It was triggers. There were things that would trigger Dionne, and then it would have her go to when she didn't feel safe and she would contemplate internally with things. She would go back and forth with herself, like, oh, you con me, or you're ex-con with Dominic, just things like that. And she put all of that on Dominic, and he just kind of like, he took it on the chin, which I was like, damn, he has so much patience. And he gave her so much grace, which I really appreciated that. But I was like, girl, you need to. And it was one time he did get his lick back. He did get his lick back and got her together. Like, you kind of ignored the red flags with old boy, and you knew he was like, you kind of ignored the red flags with old boy, knowing what was going on with him or whatever. And she was like, you know what, I deserve that. All the stuff that I was saying about you, like, I deserve that. Past consequences was another theme of like Dionne. I think I did mention it. She had a lot of people on her list. There were things that she talked about when she think about the partners that she had. There was one relationship that she had. She left a good boyfriend and kind of cheated on him with this other guy. The other guy, it was never spoken, but it was agreed on. She had a threesome with two of his friends with him. And I just felt sick. Not because of that, it's because I don't think that Dionne knew what she was doing. She was searching for her body, searching for control in her body. There's a difference when you are being promiscuous because you want to, and it was more so Dionne trying to search for ownership over her body. But in the same sense, when she looked back at it, she was sick because she was like, I was doing this to rebel from what happened to me, and I understand. Oh my God, like, I just wanted to give her a hug. It's a difference when you want to do something versus something happening to you triggers you to do something different, then ultimately you understand you deserve. And some of those relationships I'm sure she loved and she was okay with, but some of them, like that one in particular, I think his name was Trent, that one she was just like, why did I do that? She wished she didn't do that, which I understand. And then the fact that Richard was like, you're ran through and nobody wants to marry you, that's also something that society would tell people. um Ladies, if you want to have sex with somebody, please do it safely, and when it's your choice, yours, it's yours. Okay? Nobody should be controlling what you want to do with your body. The difference with this, how she feels, is like I was reacting versus like wanting to do this for myself. She was trying to regain ownership of something that was stolen for her. That's from her. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, and adopting the behavior of like her parents. I would also say, because the way they would talk about, oh, this is what I forgot to say. Everybody would blame other people for shit, which I thought was so interesting. Why he tried to have the nerve to flip the script and say, where was Deborah at when all of this was happening? She's like, I never told her. He was like, she don't know who she bringing in her house. I'm like, nigga, you wasn't there neither. She was like, well, where was you at? Like she was like, I felt like he felt comfortable doing this because you wasn't around. There was, I think, like her dad, Richard, and even Darren were all, and her mother will all kind of like flip the script. Now let's get back to when she gets home. Everybody called her, including her mom, which her mom left a brief conversation. Dionne, please call me. Which she was like, that's it. Her father never called her. I thought about that. I was like, damn, this is wild. She never talked about her father again, from my understanding. That was wild. She got a call from Darren saying that he was in intensive care. So can she come to visit him? Um, I The conversation that she had with her mom was very heartbreaking, where she basically ultimately said, if you believe, she started to say, what do you want me to do? Like, everything I did was for you and your sister. If I didn't move back to Kansas City, you wouldn't have been able to go to college. You wouldn't have been able to do this. I did this for y'all. So I'm like, did she know? But ultimately, I don't think she know. But it made me think that the same way Dionne had an inclination, or like she kind of had an idea that Darren was on the down low, I think she also, there was something there, I think, that she was ignoring, that she didn't want to come to believe. I don't know. That's how I felt. Also, she basically was like, if you think this is what happened. And I was just like, Jesus. She hung up on her. And ultimately, I'm just gonna wrap this up. Dionne, she handed in her proof of concept, which sounded beautiful. All of the pictures and the women that she met were it felt very natural and beautiful. And it felt like she was more confident after when she pitched. She didn't even pitch. She just was like, here, I'm delivering my proof of concept to you. I'm not going to go to the meeting because they rescheduled and I have a doctor's appointment. And she said that the boss was like, do you think your doctor's appointment is more important than this, this meeting? And she was like, with all due respect, no. She was like, yes, I do, because my health is more important. And it felt like Dionne was really putting herself first, for one, like really putting herself and her priorities first. It feel like sunscreen got in my eye, so that's what's going on. But so yeah, like, she went to go see Darren. This part made me cry. I'm not gonna lie. She went to go see Darren. He was tucked away in ICU, intensive care. It was never said but I think Darren actually had AIDS. The reason why I think that, because my mom used to work in the medical field, and she would tell me about the patients. She wouldn't tell me any typical details, but she would say, like, there's a lot of people that have HIV. There was a lot of people coming into the clinic. I'm from Philly. When I lived in North Philly, I grew up in North Philly, and my mom also worked at a clinic in North Philly on Hunting Park called Hunting Park Health Center before she worked at Temple Hospital. And it was a lot of patients in the 90s that would come there that would be HIV and full-blown AIDS positive. And she would talk about the signs of it and why you need to, even at a young age of girl, you have to really be cautious with sex, with drugs, any of those things, because you never know, things can happen. And I think Darren had AIDS. He could hardly breathe. He had sores on his face that were open wound sores, which are, now don't get me, I'm almost certain Darren had AIDS. It might have transitioned to AIDS. Mind you, this is very early on, so I don't know if it was different back then from now with the signs, but I think he did have AIDS. they she hugged him, and he was like, thank you for touching me, because it just feels like I'm like alienated. And they had a really good heart to heart. He was like, I did love you, I do love you, but it's just that, I was, society wouldn't let me be who I wanted to be, and I thought this was going to be it, and I really wanted to do this with you. And one thing about Black people, we are going to find the joy through pain. She said he will always hate the term play cousin, and he was like, I still want to be in your life. And she was like, you could be my play cousin. And they started laughing. She said, I want you she was like, you could be my play cousin. And they started laughing. And when I tell you, I was like, that's one thing. And he's like, she was like, I submitted in my thing. I don't know if I think she got it. I don't know if she got it. But he was like, can you tell the world about men like me? Like, we're not yet. Let them know that the villain, I think he said, like, the villains are good guys. We just, like, got some stuff going on or whatever. I'm not going to call Darren a villain. But what I will say is, like, um, I really wish society would let people just be who they are. I think people would be more happy if they could be who they are authentically. Um, yeah, and then later on, we find out um, Dionne got the job. She also, I'm not going to tell you about the test, the 2 weeks. I'll leave that. But she got the job. But there was also another moment between Farrah when she went to take the test with her that I thought was so, just like friends, man. Like, when you have a genuine good friend, and that sisterhood was just so beautiful. That was so funny. I don't want to say her if she tested positive or if she didn't test positive. I'm gonna leave that up. I'm gonna leave that for y'all, because that is one of the things where it's like we're waiting up. I'm not gonna say that part, but there was a scene in that part which was so funny, where the friend, she did something, and it was hilarious. She said something just to kind of take the ease, kind of break the ice on everything. In the end, Dionne did get the promotion. First of all, she was making $100,000 back then. Her salary, girl, like in the 90s, girl, I know she was eating. Ultimately, she went back with see her mom and her sister, and Richard wasn't there. Her mom said she was going to sell the house and start traveling and figure out what she was going to do. Girl, when I tell you, this story was so good. It was very heavy. I will say the story is very heavy. There are some trigger warnings. Sexual assault themes are in this book. Oh my God. It's a special place in hell for Richard. It really is a special place in hell for Richard. I felt like in the end, every man in Dionne's life, except for Dominic, but there was one thing that I was kind of like, I understand why Dionne was mad at Dominic, and I was also mad at Dominic for something that he did. But I understood, but also it's like you could have put me in jeopardy. You could have had me in a tight spot. Okay, you could put me in a pickle. But ultimately, I feel like a, a lot of people let Dionne down, but she was able to restore her faith in herself. But also having like Farrah in her life, having Dominic in her life, I 1000, and I'm gonna see the silver lining, right? I think that if Dionne told her mom when she was a kid, she wouldn't have been able to handle it. She wouldn't have been able to handle it because she wouldn't have had a lifeline like she had. She wouldn't have had Farrah. She wouldn't have had Dominic. Her sister was a baby. You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't have had anybody, and it was low key. And I'm gonna say this: it was low key a blessing that she waited this long, because I don't think she would have been the same person. And I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think her mom would have. I think her mom would have kind of like either ignored it or just told her, you know, I reject it. I don't know. But my battery is about to die, y'all. I love this story. If you have not read this book, please do. Um, yeah. Let me know if y'all read it, if y'all are going to read it. Yeah, comment down below if you like the story, what themes that you saw. But I will catch y'all in the next one because my camera is about to die. Don't forget. Okay, the revelations of Dionne Daphne. Let me know y'all thoughts. And until next time, I will catch you on the next one. Peace.